I'm not about to argue that this is some game-changing feature here in Next.js 15, but I do think it can be helpful, as in Next.js these days you have client and server components, dynamic and static rendering, and just, some stuff going on that can make it a little more difficult to kind of keep things straight. I think that this kind of can help out. So in your Next.js apps, and I'm just running this on localhost here, this is a Next.js 15 application, what you're going to see is that in the bottom left-hand corner, you now have this little icon, and this is telling me static route. So in Next.js 15, it gives you this static indicator in which you can see here in the docs, it displays at the bottom of the screen that signals if a route will be pre-rendered at build time, making it easier to understand whether a route is static or dynamic. Just as a quick refresher on static and dynamic rendering, with static rendering, routes are rendered at build time or in the background after data revalidation. The result is cached and can be pushed to a CDN. This optimization allows you to share the result of the rendering work between users and server requests. It's useful when a route has data that is not personalized to the user. So effectively, static rendering can be rendered at build time because that data, it's not like dynamic and it's not unique to a user. It's not going to be changing based on a certain user of your application. It's just going to remain static. So Next.js can kind of get away with rendering that data at build time, which can help improve performance. Now, dynamic rendering, it's going to mean that routes are rendered at request time. So for each user, this content might be a little bit different, and it might be a little bit different over time. So Next.js can't really get away with rendering this data at build time. It needs to do it at request time. And here it says that this is useful when a route has data that is personalized to a user, or it uses things that can only be known at request time, like cookies or URLs in search params. Now, if we take this a little bit further, when is something going to be static versus dynamic? Here in the docs, you see that there are two reasons a route might opt out of static rendering. And I will show you, just so you can see where I'm at in the docs here. And if you want to see, the first page we're at was right here in the docs. If you want to see this and pause this so you can go read this yourself, you can. And then here's the static versus dynamic rendering in the docs here. And then this is the page we're currently at. So there are two primary reasons why this might happen: the presence of dynamic APIs or an uncached data request like a call to an ORM or database driver. So I think this one's pretty straightforward, an uncached data request. That makes sense that would be a dynamic route. But what about dynamic APIs? What does this really mean? Well, these are going to be things like using cookies, headers, connection, draft mode, search params prop, unstable no store, unstable after. These dynamic APIs rely on information that can only be known at request time. Hence, this is going to lead to dynamic routes and dynamic rendering, or rendering at request time. So if we come back to our page here and let me scroll up so you can see the indicator, this is just telling you if something's statically or dynamically rendered. This page here is going to be statically rendered because it's not changing based on the user. And then if I click on one of these, you're going to see that this is still a static route. I'm at post/1 to show the first post. But if we look at the code here, we can see that I can make this dynamically rendered if I use headers from Next.js. So if I comment this code back in like so, and we just console log the headers, so this is going to be something that is a dynamic API in Next.js. It's what we just looked at on this page here. It's one of these dynamic APIs. We're now going to see that if we use this, we don't see our indicator anymore because this is going to be a dynamic route. It's going to be known at build time. And if I go back, we see that this page is still static. I don't use headers here, but we click into one of them and we see that is now a dynamic rendered page, or at request time. Now, if for whatever reason you want to disable this feature, you can go into your next config at your next.config TS or JS, and then you can effectively turn this off using this dev indicators property. And then if you do this and you still occasionally want to see your build status, one thing that you can do is if you do next build -- debug, it's going to show you this output here to where effectively if a route has this symbol next to it here, it's going to be pre-rendered as static content. But if it has this symbol here, it's going to be server rendered on demand. So if I come back to my project here and I run npm run build -- debug, we should see an output that shows us whether my routes are static or dynamic routes. And we do see this here. Homepage is going to be static, not found is static, post is static, but post /ID, that is going to be a dynamic route, which is the same thing that we see with the indicator in the application itself. So hopefully, if you've been wondering, man, what is that little indicator that I'm seeing in my Next.js projects now? Hopefully this clears it up and helps you out a little bit when it comes to that. So thanks for tuning into this, and I'll see you in that next one.